There are coffee defects that you should not drink because even one bean will ruin your cup of coffee. So today I'm going to talk about coffee defects, how to spot them and how to get rid of them. It is possible to get rid of them and improve your coffee quality significantly, but it will require you some patience and attention. How you will do this? You will need some tray because you will need surface to see every bean, ideally from each side, so you will need to flip them. And I would say even expensive coffee, very expensive coffee, will contain defects, and it's somewhat okay. But there are different types of defects. First of all, it is Quakers. It's the most obvious. You can see them right away in a coffee bag, like here's one of them. It's just lighter color of the bean itself. So I can see two beans which I will throw away right away. And Quakers, I'm getting rid of them all of the time. I don't drink them. And by the way, that's the reason why I don't buy ground coffee, because you cannot get rid of this flavor after coffee is ground. And it is easier to spot them in the beans. In ground coffee it's impossible. What you will perceive when you get in, and some coffee nowadays, if it's commercial from the store, may have even half of a bag from these Quakers, and trust me, it's not fun to have them. What they will remind you, you can take this bean and crack it open and sniff it. They will smell a little bit like peanuts, also sunflower seeds, which are spoiled, so old sunflower seeds, oxidized, etc., and spoiled. Maybe a little bit of grass, of corn. So these flavors are the sign in your coffee cup, in your ground coffee, that you have Quakers. And even one of them will ruin the flavor of your cup. So if you brew an expensive coffee, obviously, tray is your friend. And you may not believe, but even Starbucks coffee, I've recently tried to sort the defects. There were a lot of Quakers in their coffee. Even in their coffee, it's a big corporation, they have color sorters, they can afford it, but some coffee just contains a lot of Quakers, and it will not be viable to sort them because it's like 30% of the coffee is lost. It will affect the price. So some may even skip this process of sorting. And obviously small coffee roasters, specialty coffee roasters, will not bother getting color sorted because it is expensive. Most of the time people will not invest in it in a few years of roastery development. Next is black beans, mold, fungus. It's something wrong with the bean during the processing. So it's in origin where it's grown and processed. If there was something like not enough of rotation of the bean during processing, during its drying. So natural processed coffee, you just pick in cherries and dry them on the patio. And you will need to rotate them so they will dry more or less evenly. And climate affects it, temperature, amount of time it takes. So some beans could be spoiled, and if they are not sorted before packing and cleaning, it could affect your cup. And these are the most frustrating defects because if something goes wrong on origin, it is relatively hard to spot, and unless you grind the coffee, you may not perceive this defect. So after grinding your coffee, always smell it. After pouring the water, always smell it. Let it dry, because that way you will know should you discard your coffee even before brewing or during the brewing, because this mold is just very nasty. You should not drink that. Fungus, etc., black beans, even inexpensive coffee, it could happen. Because coffee is just a lot of it. You can't pay attention to every single bean. Next one is insects. If coffee is beaten, you see holes in it. Most of the time you need to get rid of these beans because they will affect the cup quite dramatically. Like in Rwanda, they have some insects which will integrate the flavor of potatoes in your coffee. You don't want this flavor in your coffee, and especially not cooked potatoes, like something raw potato. It is better always check your coffee beans. First for Quakers, second aroma after grinding during brewing, and visually obvious defects, something which is very obvious, take them out. and roasting defects. Tipping defect is like somewhat even color and it will contain one dark spot usually. So this is tipping. It will create some roasty flavor, roasty notes and some unpleasant notes. And now to brewing and more information about flavor, how it affects it. Now I'm gonna brew 2 cups of coffee. One will be without the defects, one will be with the defects. And I want to see what exact flavor I will perceive with the defects. I've tried to get rid of defects as hard as I could and hopefully there will be none of them. And next cup, so yellow will be clean. Next one will be with a lot of Quakers and some tipping. And after that, I'm gonna brew these bitten by insects. A huge chunk of these. Actually, I have bitten by insects and some damaged beans as well. So it will be 4 cups total. And I'm not gonna watch what I'm pouring because it's just normal coffee. So this one is prepared. First without defects so that I don't have any in the coffee grinder afterwards. That's a lot of defects. Around 3 grams out of 12, which is 1/4. They may not be critical like some black beans, but surely will affect the flavor significantly. As for the aroma, it's hard to tell. It's not like too perceivable, too noticeable, but it's different for sure. More punchy for some reason. Some crackers maybe. And I would say there is not a lot of Quakers, it's just tipping, more tipping. Honestly, not a lot of difference between these two, but the coffee is basic, and even though I've got rid of defects here, still the beans are not that special. Takes ages for fellow to heat up. Yeah, Quakers in wet cup, in wet coffee, very perceivable. It's like flat-ish. Here are more berries. Here's more like grass, dried grass, yellow. Not great. I'm using a Baca Plus filters so that I don't have aroma from filter itself. A little bit of spices. Here just pleasant coffee flavor. Here is just flat with some spices, with some grass, yellow dried grass. So right away, first sniff after grinding and sniff during brewing, because it will tell you a lot about coffee. In a ground coffee, it will be perceived right away if there is black bean or something like this. So fungi, mold, these flavors, right away you will sniff them and know that there is something wrong. That's why I don't like buying ground coffee, because that way I don't have any control over what defects are there. There could be a lot of Quakers, because this bag contains probably 20 to 30 beans, Quakers, and even one bean will ruin your cup for sure. Just try to do this. You can brew with 1 Quaker and compare the cups. So brew 2 cups. Here's our clean sample. The aroma is nice. Oh, yeah, it's quite strong. unpleasant flavor. Here is like berries with a little bit of leaves, green leaves, but mostly it's berries, Kenyan coffee, like you expect it to be. Some red berries, quite tactile. Actually, very clean cup. After getting rid of Quakers and defects, it's a nice coffee. It's like above basic. It's not specialty yet, but it's almost there. Pretty clean. So, getting rid of defects done, I would say perfectly. It doesn't have this flavor like coffee, berries, not even close. And 1/4 here is defects. Yeah, roasty flavor. So tipping here, mostly tipping. This means that the coffee bean was roasted, and during the roasting it expands because of internal pressure, which can be up to 9 bar. Based on Rob Hu's information from him, he's pretty significant in terms of coffee roasting knowledge. So he said in his webinar that coffee expands during the roasting because of internal content, water content and moisture content, and it does not release this water, so it retains the pressure during the roasting, and if coffee is failed, it starts to release this pressure from one point, and this called tipping. And in this area where it releases this water, this pressure, it's usually quite dark, and you will perceive these roasty notes. Also, scorching is possible, but scorching is not the defect that usually can be seen in coffee, because it's the fact that you must like you can get scorching if you're roasting on a pan, but on a commercial roaster it is harder to get because you will need quite a lot of temperature. Some berries is here, but complexity is lost. It's like flat-ish aftertaste, bitter-ish milk. So milk is not the best flavor, and it's degassed coffee for around a month, so it's not fresh. It should not have these flavors, these roasty flavors, but they're here because coffee bean, when it releases the pressure, it means that development of flavor has almost stopped. So it doesn't darken that much because there is no energy. Water can be heated up. The bean itself, I doubt it can be heated that efficiently in a roaster. So in my theory, you need to have moisture content in terms of transfer the energy from roaster to the bean structure. So you're basically using the water as a element to transfer the energy, to heat up, because 9 bar of pressure, it's what temperature? It's around 179, 180 degrees Celsius. So by that info, you can judge the amount of temperature inside the beans and the crack. If you hear the crack earlier, your temperature sensor probe, and you can guess what the temperature inside the beans, because you know at what pressure, what temperature it will be. So you know a little bit at what temperature the beans are currently roasted and what the pressure inside the bean, because during the crack it will release it. So if you release this pressure earlier, you will not get these flavors which are developed because of that pressure, because of that energy, and the bean will not get dark because Maillard reaction cannot go further. So that's why some Quakers, even in expensive coffee, because of nature, because a bean could be just some defect in the bean structure, it could just release the water during the roasting, and not because it's not ripe enough. So some beans are not ripe, but I suspect it is the structure of the bean that cannot sustain the pressure and cannot retain it. This, in my opinion, partially why we have these defects with steeping, etc. And probably some Quakers. What I have here, I don't have almond flavor, which could be perceived, and in these two samples I expect it to be present. Almonds flavor is very frustrating. Let's drink some good coffee first and discard all of this. Oh yeah, intensity of flavor, just clarity, intensity in a good cup. Fantastic. I would say this coffee is really specialty coffee because of the amount of flavor that I perceive and the clarity that I've got. So sorting creates an enormous difference. Always sort your beans if you want a good cup of coffee. An espresso roast, Quakers, most of the time that's what you will sort. But other defects, usually you will not. But it is better if you want superb cup of coffee, especially if like Turkish coffee, you can spend some time sorting the coffee and getting the best flavor possible. Now I'm gonna brew defects. Here will be on the left side cracked beans, some chipping, just cracked. And on the right side, our eaten, beaten by nature, by bugs, insects. And by the way, the chipping could also have similar effect on the coffee bean because of this release of pressure during the roasting. And some coffee may chip during expansion. It is a little bit different. Based on overall color difference, you can judge the coffee. In Rwanda, if coffee was eaten by insects, it's usually potatoes, tomatoes, potatoes mostly. In Kenya, it's tomatoes. So you can perceive the defect and say right away that something is wrong in your sorting because of the flavor that you perceive. Coffee could be complex, but because of the defect, you will waste it and will not think that is worth the money. And this exact test is very interesting for me because I haven't tried sorting these two defects. And based on what I've perceived in the previous cup, there was no almonds. I hope that it is because of this insect. If it is, I will sort my coffee beans more precisely because I don't want almond flavor nowhere near my coffee. By almond, I'm saying bad almond flavor. So it's like a little bit greenish. It's like apricot kernel, something like this if you have tried it. Something like a little bit of medicine. These two cups does not have some pleasant flavor, aroma. Some underground flavors. Not great. Earthy. Oh, earthy. Plus a little bit of honey and berries, but not pronounced berries. This earth flavor is not great. So there were 3 to 4 beans with holes in it, and I can be pretty sure that it was beaten by insect. And first chips cup. Acidity is here, but flavors, no. It is not recognizable. It's like previous normal Sortis cup, perfect. You can clearly see what the type of berries it is. Here is just some acidity and nothingness. Hints of good flavor, but not pronounced. And it's empty, so it's not complex. You perceive the intensity, but no complexity. And it's just, that's what makes sorting very important step, because even 5 beans or around that, I think maybe up to 7 beans, could ruin your cup. No almond yet, but it's more bitterness, I would say. So it's pronounced towards the bitterness. Not great. A little bit more complex than this, but I wouldn't enjoy drinking this. Conclusion. Pay attention to your coffee beans, sort them if possible, and don't expect coffee with Q score below 85 to have perfect quality. So you will need to spend some time sorting, and yes, they will be 2 levels, like 5 levels above what you paid for. But it's manual work, so even color sorter will not get rid of these defects. Thank you for watching, see you.